Right. Hey, is Dave taking any questions yet? I
Sure.
actually have one for him.
Sure.
Oh, great, Dave. Question for you. You know, obviously the 800-pound gorilla in the room this week is a lot of states, or maybe it was the feds, that proved that this Health Care Act is unconstitutional. Can you answer me a question? To me, the cheapest health care is health prevention. Okay, that's what makes health care cheap, is keeping people healthy. And I know that sounds simple, but that's it. You know, the states force us to have car insurance. The mortgage companies force us to have mortgage insurance when we can't put the whole, 20% down or under 20%. Now, all those do, that protects the insurance company and protects the bank. Having insurance on your car protects the insurance company and protects the bank. Why can't we force people to take care of themselves? And that's my question.
You know what? Leave it right there because it's a good question.
Well, in reference to whether or not you can have mandatory insurance across the United States, basically what the Obama administration is saying, that pursuant to the Commerce Clause, that they are able to require the individual mandate that people purchase insurance because it affects our ability as a nation to be cost effective in our insurance as well as our health care costs. So that's what they're saying, that the Commerce Clause allows this mandate. Now, there's been federal courts that have found it constitutional and some that have found it unconstitutional. So eventually, since there is a split in the circuits, that the United States Supreme Court will eventually probably decide this case. Probably more likely than not, they'll hear it, and there'll be an ultimate determination as to whether or not Congress and the president can require the individual mandate as relates to insurance.
So, in other words, can you force people to have insurance? That's the basic question, right?
Well, can the United States government force everyone in every state to require this individual mandate?
What do you think of that?
I think, my opinion is that I would think that it is constitutional because it does affect the nation as a whole as relates to our ability to pay our bills, control costs, and so forth. It's been done numerous times through different acts. There hasn't been a situation where we've had the whole nation have to buy something, but the federal government has required through highway appropriations and other items, changing, setting forth a DUI standard, Reagan did it in reference to requiring speed limits in all states to be 55 miles an hour. That's changed now, of course, but at the time, some states did not want to follow through with it, but the United States government said if you do not follow through, we're going to cut off your federal highway funds.
Dave Gladish is an attorney at law on Kennedy Avenue in Highland, and he'll take your questions or comments at 219-845-1100. We do this every other week, but for the past 10 days, Dave Gladish, you've been somewhere very exotic.
We went, there was a group of 10 of us, including Wayne Micca, who's always listening.
And Brian Cook,
another advertiser.
Big-time sponsor of Bootleg Liquors.
Correct. There was 10 of us that went, and we went to Beijing and to Xi'an. We went to the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, and we saw the Terracotta Warriors, among other things.
Coolest thing you saw in China?
I would say the most interesting thing that we saw was we were in Tiananmen Square, and there's about 5 or 6 of us, and all of these young Chinese kids would walk up to us, see that we're Americans. I mean, you stand out in a crowd there, and they would want to take our picture. And we thought that was very interesting that, you hear all these things like, Chinese government are cracking down on human rights, and, there's the issue between our two governments. But the normal people out there, they were very happy they were there. They wanted to take pictures with us. They couldn't be more friendly, and I thought it was a very great experience.
Now, I made jokes. Wayne Micca did call us one time from China, and he used your cell phone.
Yes, probably.
He did.
Okay.
He goes, I didn't tell Gladish, but he has international calling. I don't. So when you see like a $93 phone call, that was from calling the station in the morning.
That's okay.
Hey, I just have to say that the idea of 10 region rats walking around Tiananmen Square is just a nice thought of a bunch of jamokes walking around, seeing all this high culture, and some of them really just kind of looking for the next next cantina. But it sounded like you guys had a good time all together.
Oh, wonderful time, and I cannot say enough that the Chinese people were super nice, super accommodating. And another thing I found very surprising was that most of the signs that we saw, whether it was traffic signs or restaurants or whatever the location was, the signage was in the Chinese characters with English underneath. So even the highway signs. So I don't know if that was something that they did in response to having the Olympics. And that was also one of the great things we did. We were able to actually go to the Olympic Village, to the Cube. We were able to get inside, and there's actually a bronze bust of Mike Phelps, and noting that he had won, was it 6 or was it 8 gold medals? 8.
Eight gold medals. Brian Walsh, our sports director, quick with that number.
Yes, he was very good with that. But it was a great experience to be able to go to the Olympic Village and get inside there and see that. So they actually, it is a great accomplishment for Mr. Phelps, but they have that bust there. I thought that was pretty impressive, too.
Dave Gladish, a former tailback from Munster High, of course, now he's a civil trial specialist and well-known around the area and throughout the state in the Midwest. And he comes with us. Now let's go through it. Dan Murchek.
Okay.
Calls here a lot, and quite frankly, he's a friend of mine. And he's with the police union out at the county and so forth. And he's trying to sue the state over exactly what?
Basically, what he's saying is a taxpayer lawsuit saying that he is being affected, as well as other taxpayers, based upon the special legislation freezing the levies for Lake County based upon the fact that we've not instituted a local income tax. Now, I guess I've not seen the lawsuit, but I'm speculating based upon what I read in the newspaper and also listening to WJOB that the allegation is that this is special legislation singling out one county as opposed to the rest of the counties in the state of Indiana. Special legislation has been found to be unconstitutional because you are singling out one party as opposed to the rest of the parties throughout the state. So that is the argument that's going to be put forth. Actually, I'm surprised that it's taken this long for this issue to come forward. I don't know if there's been other lawsuits saying that this is not constitutional to freeze the levies. I'm not sure if there's not been any other entities that are willing to take up this cause. It seems that the Lake County Commissioners voted yesterday or recently to help support him in the litigation, trying to provide information, case law, and so forth, but they being the commissioners, decided not to join into the lawsuit. They could join as an interested party and help to propel this litigation forward, both through expertise, through John Dahl, but also cost. It's always expensive to pursue with litigation. So it's going to be interesting to see if anybody else wants to join in this lawsuit in hopes of removing this freeze in our levies. But then we also have the 1, 2, 3 mandate as relates to our property taxes. So either way, I think the opinion is going to be that since that is now part of the Indiana Constitution, that even if they unfreeze the levies, it will help, but it will not make any significant changes as relates to how much money is available for local government.
What if he wins entirely on this and it's declared unconstitutional and they shouldn't have been doing it all this time?
Well, they unfreeze the levies, but then that could be adverse to all the local taxpayers because if you can make the argument that this shouldn't have been done, so therefore the government should be able to go back and assess the properties at a different level, I don't think anyone's going to be happy with that. So this may be a way for local communities to garner more income through property taxes based upon the levy issue, but nonetheless it's still going to not make a great deal of change.
219-845-1100. Let's go to Randy on line 1. Hi, Randy.
Yeah, hi. I'm calling to reference a couple things. We already have the caps in place of 1, 2, and 3%, so I'm kind of confused as to why we have to freeze the levies. And the second issue is income tax. The way I understand it is the state gets a piece of that action. So if you do the 2%, the state gets a piece of that, and the corporations don't pay any of that income tax. So how is that fair to the citizens, the residents of Lake County? And I didn't understand the special taxing levy going back. I never heard anything about anybody going back on taxes. That's just going forward.
Okay, hold on a second. So I think Dave tried to explain why unfreezing the levies isn't that big a deal because of the caps, right?
That goes to the value of the property.
Yeah.
Right, but I heard you say something about the value of the property or something's going to change, and that's not true.
No, that's not what he said. He said, I asked him what would happen if Dan Murchek wins this lawsuit all the way entirely, and he speculated that it's possible, really, that he could at some point maybe go back and they could have some sort of assessment. But that's
I'm not saying they're going to do that.
Yeah, he's not saying they're doing
back on tax because those budgets are behind us. They're looking at moving forward.
Okay,
so not going back at all.
I understand that. I just asked them to speculate on it. But the one that you do bring a good point on is the county option income tax, and somebody else pointed this out to me, that it's not like we pay, say, 1% on your income, and then it all goes to just straight to the county, that there are others.
Or to the communities. That was one of the maturations of that tax that was discussed, that what happens if half stays in the community, half goes to the county, or something along those lines. There were several different plans discussed.
Yeah, and that's part of what you're talking about. Where exactly does it get distributed, correct?
That's correct. And doesn't the state get a piece of that?
I don't know.
Sure they do.
Okay, we'll have to look.
25%.
All right, well, let's look that up, because that would be an issue. Let's
here.
go to Pete on
thanks
line
a lot.
6. Hey, Pete, you're on with Dave Gladish and myself.
Well, you know what? Get the crying towel out for government. Oh, they're broke, huh? Well, I'll tell you what. Get out of the golf club business, the water park business, the banquet business, the concert promotion business. Go get rid of your defined benefit pensions, your insurance plans where the people pay next to nothing. I'm sorry, this is the real world today. And you know what? They had it good for way too long. Annual increases in their budgets, their pay scales. This is the reality of the global market. And they seem to think that they're exempt, amongst from everybody else. Everybody else has to suffer, but these people have to be held on a pedestal and funded to their needs every year. Well, it's not going to happen. And anybody that votes for that county income tax is going to get voted out of office.
Hey, Pete, the Times reporting on the front page article that if there hadn't been property tax caps, that we would have paid $103 million more in taxes this year. And it begs the question of do you really notice that much difference right now, that even though, we didn't pay that $100 million?
No, and you know what? You were never getting the amount of services that you've been paying for. And you know what? It always comes down, the threat is always, we're going to lose public safety. That's always the threat. Well, gee, there seems to be $50 million for a band shell over in Hammond, okay? There seems to be money for a huge water park that, by the way, pays no property taxes on Route 30 over there. They don't belong in any of these businesses. Public safety should be their primary goal.
Hey, thanks a lot. Talk to you. 219-845. Where are we going, Ryan Point? Let's go to Joe on line 1. Hi, Joe.
Yes, you had a replay of Van Til's presentation with you the other day, and one of the things he brought up is since one city, like the city of Gary with the river basin, can institute everybody, all the other cities or counties around them, and the question was raised that can we start a referendum to stop this thing? And he didn't know or didn't want to answer that question. I'm asking Mr. Gladish, can we set up a referendum where we can protect ourselves? We have councils that are voting no. We have counties that are voting no, and yet we're going to get this this thing. The Gary has the power because of the way it's all this conservancy district is set up.
All right, Joe, good question. Dave, you know what he's talking about?
In reference to whether or not Gary, based upon the number of properties that they hold along the river, if they're able to get this in front of the circuit court judge to make a determination as to whether there should have this new governmental entity put in place, I think the check, and I think that's what he's asking about, the check is the judge. The judge will set forth whatever the standards are under Indiana law, and I'm not sure what they are, but the judge will make the determination based upon, I'm not sure what he's going to review. Is it going to be there's going to have to be so many signatures for, so many signatures against? Does it go to a referendum before the people? I'm not sure how that works.
No,
but there is a check.
What he's talking about is Gary can put this before the judge and basically make Munster, Hammond, Highland, Winfield, everybody be part of this conservancy district.
They can go before the judge. Yeah.
Yeah, in other words, but they put them in there. They're all lumped in there. Whether it gets okayed or not is another story, and I think a lot of people are looking at that. And quite frankly, it's kind of a quirk in the law and wasn't necessarily made, as far as I understand it, for this purpose, but obviously George Van Til and some of the other folks are using it to create the Conservancy District, and it's a tool. It's there. You might as well use it.
Well, it's not necessarily creating it. It's beginning the process of creating it. So,
well, it's semantics, okay? Because it is created once it goes in front of the judge. Whether it's okayed or not is another story. So, I mean, it's there. Munster and Highland got to go in front of the judge along with Gary. And I think that's the point that he's making. All these people are saying no, then why is it still going in front of a judge? Because
under the law, there's enough parcels of property that are in control by the city of Gary that allow them to go forward with this. Now, whether or not it passes is a whole other issue.